Well, hi ladies, and happy Monday morning. Again, as I said on our last video last week, I've recorded some of these early, so I may or may not have had a baby by now, but most likely I have. So it's kind of funny to record these early, but I wanted to jump in today about something that has kind of been pressing on my heart lately, and that has been, it might just be because I'm very large, as my niece says. She's 4. She looked at my belly and said, "You're very full." And I'm just moving a lot slower, that I feel less productive. And in that, I feel like I've kind of learned a little bit of a lesson that it's okay to slow down a little bit. And so that's the title of our little video today, is slow down. And kind of the main thing that I wanted to think about is, you know, I used to slow down enough or be bored enough that I would have all of these creative thoughts. I would have all of these moments where I wasn't busy, so I wouldn't have interrupted thoughts constantly of gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do this, gotta do that. I don't know if you're a checklist person. I am. Some of my coworkers, we laugh because we'll come in, we start doing stuff, and I'm like, oh, I've done 10 things, but they weren't even on my list. So I write them down so then I can actually check them off. And I'm like, I'm productive today, you know, and I feel good about it. So I don't know if you're that kind of person, but that's the way that I am. But I was thinking about it, and it's just, my mind is constantly entertained in some way. I mean, our world is just, we're just constantly inundated with entertainment. I mean, think about TV, your phone, you know, listening to podcasts. I mean, I listen to things while I'm getting ready for work, while I'm in the shower, while I'm cleaning, while I am in the car on the way to work, on the way home from work, when I'm driving anywhere. It's constantly music or podcasts or something. And it just made me wonder, you know, where's the quiet? I need to slow down enough to actually be bored. And so some of you know this, I was a competitive swimmer for 12 years. And so I tell people, if you don't think I can entertain myself, I stared at a black line for 12 years. So for 12 years, I swam back and forth and was able to entertain myself. And quite honestly, if you don't know this, I've written some books, fantasy books written, you know, teenage years, but I wrote them mainly in my head while swimming. And so it's because I finally had the time and space, you know, obviously when it was just getting mileage in, you know, when you weren't doing geared force sets of swimming. So if you're a swimmer, you know what I'm talking about. But it was almost kind of like, or if you're a runner or you're a walker, it was just, I let thoughts wander. And we tend to not do that in this day and age, or at least I'm very bad about that. And so I wanted to ask you a question. When was the last time you let yourself be bored? Like actually bored, sitting there thinking, I don't even know what to do. I have nothing to do. No entertainment, no way to be entertained, nothing to do. And so, and actually this past year, going to the Masters tournament was so fascinating to me, because it was kind of like, I was born in the 90s, but it was kind of like taking a step back because nobody had their phones out. And so when people were waiting in line or waiting on a golfer, people just started talking to strangers, and it was so nice. You know, everyone's not scrolling or doing something on TikTok, or, oh, I got to make an Instagram story, or, you know, whatever it was. And so, and all of those things can be used for good things, but it was so nice to see people be bored and then start talking to somebody. And it made me wonder how much we're missing out on because we don't take time to rest and to slow down. And so there was this verse in Luke that was just reminding me of how Jesus was constantly around people. He was being pursued with work to do, to heal. The needs were so many, and yet what does he do? He withdraws to spend time alone and to pray. And so I just want to read from Luke 5:15 through 16. It says, "But now even more the report about him," this was after he's healed somebody, I believe from leprosy. Don't quote me on that one. I forgot to read the whole full story right before. But now even more the report about him went abroad, and great crowds gathered to hear him and to be healed of their infirmities. But he would withdraw to desolate places to pray. And I love that. He would withdraw. He would actually remove himself from the situation to pray. And so that's my challenge for you today, to remove yourself completely to pray. Go put your phone in a different room, completely in a different room. People can wait. It's okay. Remove yourself from the temptation of distraction and sit down, withdraw, go to a lonely place and pray. And as I was like marinating on this, I know that I have shared this book with you guys multiple times, Jackie Hill Perry's Upon Waking, and I just have been taking my time slowly through it and chewing on it, and just so happened, as God does, you know, I was already contemplating rest, and what was the title of this one? The first words say, why is rest so hard? And she goes on to talk about how rest can be so difficult because we feel like we have to constantly be doing something. That's the way our culture is. But she said this phrase, it's on page 126 if you have this book, and she said, in truth be told, work has a way of disordering our affections and meddling with our mind, so much so that we begin to think we made the soil we tilled, found the seed we planted, created the water we used, and therefore the growth we called good is to our glory. So she's not saying that work is a bad thing. She's not saying that we shouldn't strive for the kingdom, that we shouldn't do all of these things. But what she is saying is that rest is so important, that it's so essential. Being withdrawn from things is so important because it returns our focus upon the Lord and not on what our hands have done. So me coming in and doing all those check marks and stuff is to make me feel good, to see that what I have done at the end of the day is good. It's me, rather than, Lord, look at what you've done through me. Look at what you've blessed me with and given me to do. Look at what you've called me to do. And so those are the things that in busyness we tend to forget. And then I love at the very end of this, because she says, you know, because God, obviously, he sets the example before us that we are to Sabbath, that we are to rest. And on the seventh day, he rested and called creation good. And she says, in silence and solitude, we can remember that man doesn't live by bread alone. In the cessation from work, whether 5 minutes or 5 days, we can recall that the manna came without Israel's help. God blesses without our help. In this rest, we can discover that God's provision isn't dependent on our hustle, but on his goodness. Rest is indeed worship. So kind of like how we were talking last week, in that God has not failed you. It's this focus on the Lord, that he is the one that provides for my family. He is the one that gives me work to do. He is the one that gives manna. He is the one who does all things for good. And it's not by our power or our might, but by his. So I want you to think of that today. And I want to challenge you, even if it's for 5 minutes, go just put your phone away, put everything away for 5 minutes and just sit down and spend time with God. And just, even if it's just focusing on your breath. I heard somebody one time say, you're just breathing Jesus in and breathing everything else out. And just say his name over and over again for 5 minutes and see if, and just see the blessing in that, and reminding and reorienting yourself to the power of his name, of his goodness, and not your own. So I hope that that encourages you today and reminds you that rest and slowing down is so important, because it reorients us to who is the most important, and that is the Lord. So withdraw today like Jesus does and spend time in a lonely place. Maybe get a little bit bored, but at the same time, spend time reorienting yourself and praying and thanking God and just dwelling, lingering with him. So thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day.